Hi guys, this is Richard Yi. Today is April 25th, 2011, and today I want to talk about the fallacy that's in the mainstream economics and usually in the financial community. Well, nowadays when you watch those financial shows, you see those people when they see consumption is not as high as expected, they take it as a depressing signal because in their theory, in the Keynesian theory, uh, when when consumption is increased, right? When people are willing to spend more, the aggregate demand is up, so it's increased, and producers are willing to produce more to satisfy the demand, and they're gonna buy more materials, they're gonna hire more workers, they're gonna build more factories, right? They're gonna pay more wages, and those factors they will continue the cycle, so the economy, in their opinion, will grow that way. Well, I think it's a fallacy because, the theory lacks two essential elements. The first element it lacks is time. It takes time to build a factory, to hire workers, to enhance supply chain, to actually satisfy the increased demand. Uh, because when demand is increased, right, the supply doesn't increase simultaneously. It takes time. So it must create a shortage in the economy. And the second thing that the mainstream theory is lacking is uh, it requires capital, right? When you build those factories, when you hire more workers, and enhance your supply chain, you're gonna need capital. Most firms they don't have that many capitals setting aside to waiting to be invested. So most of the time they're gonna seek either angel investors or go to banks to borrow money to increase investment, right? So if the according to the Keynesian theory, if the only factor that's going to move the economy forward is consumption and not saving, how are those firms going to get capital to spend, right? So here is a fallacy, and that's why I think it does not work. Well, and some economists argue that you can have the government step in and have the government increase money supply, and thus those firms can have enough capital to invest, right? It's simple. Well, it's actually worse if you have the government step in and do those things, because when government steps in and start loaning money, it's gonna manipulate the interest rate, right? And interest rate is it's an important signal to the producers, right? It represents how much people are willing to consume in the future, uh, and thus so the producers know how much to produce, right, to satisfy the future demand. So if the government interest rate, the interest rate set by the government is too low, below the free market level, uh, producers that immediately give producers the incentive to increase investment. And but in reality, uh, people aren't going people aren't going to have that much demand in the future, and eventually when those investment matures, and it will eventually create a economic depression because demand cannot be satisfied. Demand cannot be met, right? There's not as much high demand as anticipated, so they're gonna cut prices and eventually lay off workers, right? So the economy goes back into depression. So it's actually worse if you have government step in. So I think the Austrian theory provides a more convincing, explanation of how the economy works. Well, when people save, right, they don't just save for the sake of saving. They save because, they consider future consumption is higher than current consumption, right? They can buy more goods in the future than right now, and therefore that's why they save. And uh, when money is saved, banks can get those capital and loan out to businesses, so businesses can expand, right? They can have money to, build factories, to hire more workers, to bid raw materials to satisfy demand in the future. And actually, the two things they connect, right? When people save, they're gonna expect more in the future, and those businesses can get the money and build more to satisfy that demand in the future. So it's actually pretty interesting. So therefore, I think the Austrian theory is much superior than the mainstream theories. And uh, I think the mainstream theory, does not take into account of the supply side. It only views the demand side, which is not complete. Whereas the Austrian theory, it takes account of both sides and explains how goods comes to existence. That's why I support the Austrian theory. And I'll be blogging again maybe next time. Thank you for watching.